Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Welcome to our channel everyone. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. Let's take a closer look at the important events taking place in the country today. Let's start with Senator Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri, who says, I quote, "I'm worried that President Biden is nominating for federal office individuals who believe that this is a country founded in racism." Now, I'm not sure exactly where he got that information, but I do think it's important for us to know what all our elected officials are saying. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Republican senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley. Let's watch.
I'm worried that President Biden is nominating for federal office individuals who do not share a view of America as a good and decent place, who do not believe that the history of this nation is worth celebrating, nominating instead people who believe that this is a country founded in racism and shot through with corruption.
So there you have it, everyone. Interesting comments from Senator Josh Hawley. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, here's a new tweet from Burgess Everett, the co-congressional bureau chief for Politico. He says that the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer just told Senate Democrats that he will meet with Speaker Pelosi and the White House officials to talk infrastructure, both the bipartisan approach, which they seem to be trying, the White House and the Democrats, as well as a reconciliation approach. In the meantime, Senator Marsha Blackburn, the Republican from Tennessee, said this, I quote, "The founders granted the states power over their own elections for a reason. The federal government is beyond incompetent to get the job done." Folks, it's very clear that there's a lot of contention about the voting bill. And let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Marsha Blackburn. Let's watch.
This is a politically motivated federal takeover of elections that would give us the exact opposite of what's laid out in the Constitution. The founders granted the states power over their own elections for a reason. The federal government is beyond incompetent to get this job done. If you like the service you get from the IRS or the EPA or OSHA, that's what you could expect the next time your community has an election. If we allow this bill to pass, the promise of one person, one vote will crumble. The promise of counting eligible ballots and not counting ineligible ballots would go by the wayside. And what do you get in exchange? The promise of chaos, confusion, and a lack of confidence in the integrity of the vote.
In the meantime, here's what the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said on the Republican voter legislation. He said, I quote, "This is not election integrity, but this is voter suppression, and voter suppression directed only at one group of voters." Wow. Incredible comments. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Republicans claim they're making it easier to vote and harder to cheat in an election. In reality, they're making it harder to vote and easier to cheat in an election. And we all know it. And all we want to do here is debate it. Regular order, which colleagues on both sides of the aisle have asked for. That's what we're asking for here, just to debate these things. And they won't even do that because they're so afraid of what that debate will show. That this is not election integrity, but this is voter suppression, and voter suppression directed only at one group of voters.
As that's going on, Senator John Cornyn from Texas sought to clarify what the Republicans are doing. He said this, I quote, "There's no widespread effort to stop voters from casting a ballot. There's no desire to hand states' constitutional authorities over to the federal government." In other words, he's saying let the states do what they do and what they want to do. And he also said, our Democratic colleagues are struggling to accept this reality. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator John Cornyn, the Republican from Texas.
So, Madam President, there is no voter suppression crisis, certainly not a systemic one. And if there is a problem with suppressing minority votes, there is authority available under the Voting Rights Act for the Attorney General appointed by Joe Biden and confirmed by the Senate to be able to go after them. There's no widespread effort to stop voters from casting a ballot, and there's no desire to hand states' constitutional authorities over to the federal government. Our Democratic colleagues are struggling to accept this reality, They spent the last several days working behind the scenes to negotiate a compromise among themselves. Well, there was never a question of whether or not this would be a bipartisan bill because of the overreach that I've just talked about. The question was whether or not the bipartisan opposition seen in the House would continue in the Senate. But even if Democrats were to accept all of the changes proposed by Senator Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, and endorsed by Stacey Abrams, the rotten core of this bill remains the same. This is a politically motivated federal takeover of our elections, and it will not stand. The Constitution doesn't give the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to govern how states run their elections. That's reserved to the states by the Constitution of the United States of America. I will firmly oppose any effort to hand Texas's constitutional rights to regulate and conduct its elections to the federal government. A one-size-fits-all federal mandate won't improve public confidence in our elections. It will be seen for what it is in a transparent way, a partisan political takeover, a coup d'etat, really, of the way that our elections are run. Elections should be run by the folks who are elected and who are accountable to the states, in my state, Texas, and certainly not partisan political actors with an agenda here in Washington, D.C.
Now, let's shift gears to the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who said this: many Democrats would pass this bill with the slimmest possible majority, even after its companion faced bipartisan opposition over in the House. What a craven political calculation. What a way to show your disdain for the American people's choices. Do you think that the Democrats are showing disdain for the American people's choices? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell. Let's watch.
Now, on an entirely different matter, later today, the Senate will vote on whether to advance Democrats' transparently partisan plan to tilt every election in America permanently in their favor. By now, the rotten inner workings of this power grab have been thoroughly exposed to the light. We know that it would shatter a decades-old understanding that campaign finance law should have a bipartisan referee and turn the Federal Election Commission into a partisan majority cudgel for Democrats to wield against their political opponents. We know that it would let Washington bureaucrats direct federal dollars into politicians' campaign accounts, government money for yard signs and attack ads. We know that it would let Democrats take a red pen to election laws in each of the 50 states, neutering popular precautions like voter ID while legalizing shady practices like ballot harvesting across the board. It's a recipe for undermining confidence in our elections, for remaking our entire system of government to suit the preferences of one far end of the political spectrum. And if they could, many Democrats would pass it with the slimmest possible majority, even after its companion faced bipartisan opposition over in the House. What a craven political calculation. What a way to show your disdain for the American people's choices.
Shifting gears back to the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he said this: Republicans are making it hard to vote and easier to steal an election. Pretty significant comments. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
My Republican friends are fond of saying they just want to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat in an election. But when you look at what they're actually doing, it's spectacularly obvious that Republicans are making it harder to vote and easier to steal an election. The big lie that started with Donald Trump is infecting them. Lies don't matter. And they don't matter when it comes to this sacred process of elections. Free, open, fair elections where everyone has an opportunity to vote. Do my colleagues forget? Do you remember what Donald Trump did? Was he interested in a free, open, fair election? Donald Trump tried to pressure local officials to overturn a democratic election in America. It was a stress test on our democracy unlike any in recent history. But our institutions held. So now what do Republicans want to do? Change the results. Change the election officials. Again, Trump tried to pressure local officials to overturn democratic elections. in a huge stress test on our democracy. Our institutions held. Local officials certified election results. The courts rejected spurious claims of fraud. Vice President Pence, no less, opened the proper envelopes.
And if you thought that was interesting, let's check out the Democratic Senator Dick Durbin from the state of Illinois, who used bags of flour, yes, you heard that right, bags of flour, to highlight federal sentencing disparities for crack and powder cocaine. Yep, folks, this is what happens. This is where our taxpayer dollars are spent. Let's roll the tape and see what Senator Dick Durbin, the Democrat from Illinois, was saying to prove a point about disparities for crack and powder cocaine. I want you to know I don't really know the difference, but I guess I learned something new with this video from Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois. Let's watch.
First, this is flour, and this is an indication of the amount of powder cocaine that would result in the sentencing for this weighted amount of crack cocaine, 100 to 1. 18 to 1, I'm sorry, 18 to 1, which is an indication that if there's no science between the difference, the sentencing is dramatically different. I think that is the simple, direct point we're trying to make at this hearing.
And finally, let's go back to one more instance of a Republican senator trying to gin up as much trouble as possible. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri said this, I quote, "What we must not allow is our federal government to affirm and sanction and advocate this critical race theory." It's this new item that these senators have found to try and create trouble. He said, "We cannot allow the United States of America, the greatest nation on earth, to legitimize a new era of racial engineering." Pretty significant comments. Let's roll the tape and hear from Josh Hawley.
Now, it's a free country. Dr. Kendi and these other authors can write their books and debate their views and put them out in public. It's absolutely their right to do so. They are welcome to do so. But what we cannot allow, what we must not allow, is our federal government to affirm and sanction and advocate this critical race theory. We cannot allow the United States of America, the greatest nation on earth, to legitimize a new era of racial engineering. In the past few years, critical race theory has gained new prominence in the giant corporations, in the media, in the military, even in our children's schools. We're seeing this across the country. We've seen too many of our children exposed to a curriculum like the 1619 Project and its derivatives that encourages division rather than unity, that rewrites our history in the service of an ideological agenda rather than in the service of truth. Young children set off to school with eyes full of hope and hearts full of pride in their country, only to be taught that white privilege defines the nation, that subjects like mathematics are inherently racist, that the Christian faith is oppressive. They're taught that the nuclear family perpetuates racism. Now imagine for a moment if you were taught the same. Imagine if you were taught that your dreams were unjust or unfair, that your family were oppressors, that you were at fault for the problems of our society today. These are just children. We should be nurturing their dreams. We should be nurturing their hopes. We should be giving them a great hope for the future of this great nation known as the United States of America, a hope for the future of the greatest nation in the history of the world, rather than teaching them to mistrust their classmates and to distrust their own history.
Not a single video episode of Ignition Time would be complete without featuring the prominent Republican Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas. He said this, I quote, "Should we expect more and more overdoses, more and more violence, and more murders?" This is Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas, fear-mongering over today's southern border hearing. Let's roll the tape and watch Senator Ted Cruz in action, trying to create as much trouble as possible. Let's watch.
If the Biden administration continues its open border policy and we continue to see more and more illegal drug smuggling into this country, should we expect more and more overdoses, more and more violence, and more murders?
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I want you to know that you are greatly appreciated. Me and my team work very hard on this channel every single day to bring you all the information behind the scenes. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. We would greatly appreciate that. I want you to know that we work hard on this channel every single day. And the one thing that you can do for us is click the like button, click subscribe, enable notifications. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.